I have a lot of neurodivergent folk in my audience, like a lot of ADHD, a lot of autism, like a lot of neurodivergence. And I myself have ADHD. And I know with a summit, like it's not much resistant every day to, click to watch the video. Like you don't have to log in or anything usually. But there is even less resistance when it's just like every day they check their podcast. Oh, there are new things here. Oh, I'm going to download these and listen to these. Like it's even less resistance.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another case study episode. I have finally landed the one, the only Lizzie Goddard, Elizabeth Goddard. You can call her both. She's amazing. She's an online business strategist, and you might know her from her Facebook group. Is a very popular place for online business owners. It is one that is actually active. People actually go in there and enjoy hanging out in there. So if you're in business, you probably have heard about it. If you're not in there, you do have to buy or sign in or opt into one of her products. That is actually part of the way she gatekeeps that space. But we're going to talk about some fun stuff today because Lizzie, you guys, I have to preface this by saying that she has been an OG supporter from like day one and is somebody who went all in on audio when there wasn't anyone going all in on audio. Not only does this woman create content and courses, like she's very prolific in her content and she creates a lot of stuff, she also makes sure that it's very accessible. So audio is a big part of her business. And we're going to talk about a couple things that she's learned. Well, low hanging fruit. Yeah, it's a part of every one of her products. However, we have some cool stuff because she's also an experimenter for sure. Definitely likes to try things out, test, see what works, get the numbers. And so we have all of that for you guys today. So I think you're going to love this episode. So Lizzie, thank you for coming. I know you're hard to nail down. Yeah. And it's just exciting to just see you on camera and be with you too, just being a part of your world for so long. Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself really quickly and share a little bit about your business?
So thank you so much for having me. This has been so overdue. You've been trying to pin me down for years and I'm just an ADHD nightmare. That's the truth. So yes, I'm Lizzie Goddard, and I usually call myself a multi-offer strategist. And what I mean by that is my whole thing is multiple offers at multiple price points, lots of different things going on, but like really strategically to swirl people into my world. So a couple of years ago, the main thing that like the business gurus and whatnot were teaching was very much signature business model with like an ascension. You have a lower price thing, a medium price thing into the one high ticket thing. You sell it once a year, the big launches. And that's great for them. But I'm just like, I cannot do that. I cannot.
And also, how are they doing now?
I cannot talk about the same thing for more than about 2 weeks. I just feel like I'm going to die. My soul just like dies at the prospect of talking about the same thing for long. It was really around like 2019 and 2020. I really started to like whisper, I think there's another way. I think that maybe you can build a big, messy, multi-offer, swirly ecosystem style business and be successful and not burn out, obviously. And the more I started whispering it, the more people like resonated with, oh my goodness, is that possible? Because that is what I want, these like frameworks and strategies that I'm learning, like they work to an extent, but they don't fit how I want to show up in my life and business. So I started to say it louder and louder. So I got to the point where I'm just shouting now about you don't have to have a signature offer. You can have lots of offers, lots of price points, lots of experimenting, lots of playing. Like I really pride myself on coming up with like innovative strategies in the online business space. And yeah, that's sort of what I do now. So I have loads and loads and loads. I nearly swore. I don't know if I can swear. Loads and loads of offers and lots of just different things going on that are strategically and intentionally swirling people into my world. So they buy again and again, they become raving fans so that I don't have to constantly be like growing my audience. Like the best people to buy from you are the people who've already bought from you, but giving them more. And I'm so like creative. It's really taken a long time to accept that I'm creative, but I
Mm.
think I am to like create new things for people who are already on the journey with you.
So good. Yeah. And part of me is you've been able to do this because so you might be listening. You might be like, so she has 100 courses. Like, how does someone even do that? But Lizzie also does it in a way that doesn't overcomplicate things. Like you'll release a course and you're like, hey, did you guys know you can host, office hours on Voxer? Here's how I did it. And it's like a training and she breaks it up in audio form. It's like nothing overcomplicated. And I think we just got so into this must be in Kajabi, must have all
Oh
these
yeah.
videos, must have transcripts, must be this whole like crazy thing. And I have to charge, what it's worth and like with air quotes around it and all the things. And then I have to have this whole funnel that sells that
Yeah.
one thing. And you don't look at it like that. You're just like,
No.
this is going to help my people. Like it helped me. Here's how I saved myself
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
by doing office hours. And it's that kind of thing. Like it's less about overcomplicating things with so many offers and more about just like creating from that space of this worked for me, it could possibly work for you. And like what's cool is like audio, can make you deliver stuff pretty easily. So it's easy to get stuff out. Or like the way you do it is a lot of times you'll do like a workshop. You'll teach something
Yes.
once and then you and your team break it up and that kind of model. And I think when you remove the complication, you don't have to set up all these things tied to that offer. Yeah, you get to like now talk about all the different ways you can run your business and all the things you want to talk about and instead of making it complicated.
Some people look at my business and they're just like, that looks so overwhelming. You must be so exhausted. This looks so complicated. And I'm just like, you're not my people. And that's cool. There's plenty of people teaching business models that will work for you. But when I find my people, they're just like, I can do that. Like, I can go
Mm.
down all the rabbit holes and do all these things. And I'm like, you absolutely can and still be successful.
Yeah, and I think it just honors how multifaceted most people are is the other part
Yes.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's yeah, there might be some part of your product that I'll never ever purchase, but that doesn't matter because I know that there's somebody else who that actually crosses them perfectly. And
Yeah.
so by you not creating it, you're just not helping that person. I think if
Exactly.
you boil it
Exactly.
down, like if, even if a couple hundred people need that one thing, that's awesome, depending on how much time and effort it took. And I think you've been really good at managing that or like
Yes.
you're also very honest about that online. You're very honest about I'm at capacity right now. I thought I was going to be able to do this. Like my idea brain went this way, but like here's where I'm at. And I think that's another way people respect that is like they see you as the human running this multifaceted business as well and that attracts them to this business that like could look
Yeah.
complicated to someone else but actually fits them because they see the person that's behind it as well.
Well, my one core value, I have other core values, but the one it distills down to is openness.
Mm.
And, I have young kids, 5 and 6. I have chronic fatigue syndrome. I have ADHD. And just life is chaotic and a hot mess most of the time. And I really feel like I built my business being open about that. I have this whole thing that I'm successful because of those things, not
Mhm.
despite those things. A lot of people are just like, oh, you built this business, you know, despite having chronic illness or despite having ADHD. And I'm like, no, I built this business because I have chronic illness, because I've got young kids, because I have ADHD. Like, I had to find a way to make this work for me. And being open about that with my audience just gives them permission. Sometimes, I do have to reschedule things and it's chaotic in my life and I over anticipated constantly like what I'd actually be able to deliver on and do, but people appreciate the openness and it gives them permission to ease up on their standards that they're holding for themselves as well. Because 9 times, this is such a thing, but like when I have to, if I've got a migraine and we rescheduled this podcast interview. It was meant to happen maybe a
Oh yeah,
year
I
ago.
can't remember. Yeah, yeah.
And I don't even know what the issue was, but let's say it was a migraine. A lot of people will like push through and said like, I said I was going to do this. I am going to commit to doing this. And I'm just like, I would rather be like, you're not going to get the best version of me. This is not going to be the best podcast for your audience. I would rather say, you know what? I'm sorry, I've got a migraine. I need to reschedule. And 9 times out of 10, when you say you need to reschedule, the other person is like, oh, thank goodness, me too, but I didn't want to ask. Like giving people permission to like reschedule when they're not at their best. So much humanness has been lost from how we do business. And I think it's a lot of, like masculine leaders in the
Yeah.
space. And it's a more feminine potentially energy. And I'm not really into my masculine and feminine energy. I'm a queer woman. I have a lot of trans friends and stuff. There's a lot of complexities in me saying that. But I think a lot of people we are learning business from have different hormones, different energy cycles, different responsibilities, different, like childcare, household, etc. And I just want to show you this is how my life looks, and it's chaotic and messy, and you can still be successful and
Mm-hmm.
show up. And my whole thing, and I know this is really like arrogant, but like my whole thing has always been like, I'm worth the wait. Like when you actually get to hire me, when I actually reply to your email, when we actually have that conversation, it was worth the wait. And I know it's really arrogant to say that, but it's allowed me to actually honor what's going on for me in any moment, because I come to truly believe like it'll be worth the wait when you get me.
Yeah, because you'll show up as your
Fully. Yes,
100% and 110 if you
exactly.
can, right? Like I no,
Exactly.
I get that. And I think there's like a level of trust that you build with that
Yes.
because even if you do, yeah, say I can't show up to this, you do though later. Like you still follow through in some capacity. I think there's to your point, like by honoring our own personal lives and by honoring our own busyness and things that we all have, I think that builds that relationship
Yes, it
piece
does.
that the other people telling you like, "Oh, you're just not trying hard enough," or "You don't care about your goals every
Yeah.
day," or I don't know, or "You're not disciplined enough," or whatever the like language is around that crap. You're like, "I don't trust you." So like
Yeah.
something feels off because is that it? Like it
Yeah.
can't be it. And so when someone shows up in this other way and is successful, whatever that even means to
Yes,
some people,
absolutely.
but is successful, yeah, you give permission for it to be another way. And I think it's been that one way for so long. Like you have to wake up at a certain time and you have
Yeah.
to meditate and then you have to whatever, right? And you're just like, okay, but I don't think you have to do that.
You
That's a
don't.
very
You
easy
don't.
viral video that you can create, but cool. Anyways, okay. So this is Lizzie, guys. This is who we're talking to. And I'm telling you, she showed up with numbers. So she's not messing around. She's showing up with some of that data. So, Lizzie, let's actually go back a little bit. I think you heard about private podcasting and Hello Audio for me as my guess, but what about it back, if you can think back to when you're like, oh, this looks cool? Like, what were you thinking at that time where you're like, this makes sense for
So
me?
we actually go back you and I go back
Yes.
which year did Hello Audio?
2019 was the day I made the post. I don't know if you bought a lifetime license. Did you buy a lifetime license?
I
Oh,
didn't, and I live to regret this. So
yeah.
we met at McKenna Hell's Practical Magic
Mhm.
event in San
Yep.
Antonio in March 2017. That is when we
Yes.
first met. At the dinner the night before, you were talking about
Mhm.
Bachelor, and I'm like, this is great, we can be friends. I must have joined your list around that time. Like we were definitely Facebook friends from
Yep.
then and were aware of each other's existence. I was doing something quite different then. I was
Yeah,
predominantly
like
doing
ConvertKit stuff. I
ConvertKit virtual
remember. Yeah.
assistant work.
Yeah.
And then in 2018, I joined Tribe, now the membership experience, through your affiliate link. You sent a really good email on the last day and it got me and I signed up. That's a whole other conversation for another day,
That is
but
a whole other
that is,
conversation.
I, moved further into your world at that point.
Mhm.
And then I don't really know. Like, I vaguely remember being aware of Hello Audio launching, and I
Mhm.
vaguely remember being aware of the lifetime deal. But at that time, I was not a podcast listener. I didn't get it. Like,
Mm.
audio was not a way that I really consumed things. And one thing I would say to that, at that time, I was not yet a parent. I was not yet a parent. I
Oh,
was just
interesting.
living the kid-free life.
Yeah.
And I think it was around 2019, 2020 that I did start to listen to podcasts more. And I did start to, play courses on my phone whilst I was doing the mounds of laundry. And it was around that time that I started to shift a little bit more to audio when I became a parent, and then into the pandemic, of course. So I became a parent in 2019 when we adopted our two little girls. And the tipping point, I don't know. I don't know what the tipping point was. I was aware of Hello Audio. People were using it. It seemed cool. I finally understood the point of it.
Mhm.
And I found a post I made in my client student only group that you mentioned in March 2021. And I
Mhm.
asked people if I started adding private podcast feeds to my courses, would you be into that? It had loads of comments, like 60, 70 odd comments of people saying yes, or not for me, but I know other people like it. So like overwhelmingly positive. So I think I signed up that day, the next day. That's usually how I roll. And within a month or two, I had put all my existing courses onto it. And like I really went all in with it. I'm a big affiliate for things that I really love. And I was like promoting it from that point forward. So I don't know what the specific thing was, but there is definitely, I wasn't a consumer of audio at the initial time it launched. But then a few years later, I think through being a parent, I found myself consuming audio a lot more. It was starting to gain a little bit more traction in the marketplace.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
still, I was a fairly early adopter to it in like
Mhm.
March 2021, and probably a fairly early adopter of how all in I went on like all courses must be on Hello Audio. Let's just get them up. So yeah, I don't remember the specific thing, but that was the chain of events that led to me having all my courses on there for sure.
That's so funny. You're just like Andrea Crowder. I'm almost positive she launched her first feed too. Every single course she has
Yeah.
is audio first, basically, or like
Oh,
she'll
okay.
run
Yeah.
it live, but like it's all audio based. And
That's
she
really cool.
does not own Kajabi or any other like course management system. She'll run them live, but then it's just the recordings or whatever. And she started in March and she had her first feed. She
Mm.
made an exclusive feed for it specifically. And then I think in 2022 is where she put her whole catalog on it. Yeah. And I think it's fair. So yeah, I dropped the Facebook post that signed up the lifetime license people at the end of 2019. And then about a year later, November 2020 is when we had our first subscriptions to even be
Mhm.
purchased. So that lines up pretty well. So I could see too what I think is beautiful about your community is like a lot of times, and this is why you're like a top affiliate at Hello Audio too, is like people go to your space for the tech tools that work
They
for
do.
these kind of businesses that you're
Absolutely.
talking about. And I think like multi-offer type businesses, having an audio version or even going audio only in some cases does make us be able to get content out faster, courses out faster, get
Definitely.
things together faster. And so your people are always sharing the latest technology and tools. I guess where I'm trying to get to is you were a big part in helping us spread the message at Hello
Oh.
Audio.
Another thing I'd say
Yeah.
about my audience particularly, I have a lot of neurodivergent folk in my audience, like a lot of ADHD, a lot of autism, like a lot of neurodivergence. And I myself have ADHD. I didn't realize this for a long time. I knew I had a lot of ADHD people in my world, but I didn't think that was me. And then it was me too. But anyway, and I think by having my courses, not only, so my courses are not audio first, they're very simple slides talking over a Notion document, like video based. But I think having all of my courses on Hello Audio and the fact that when you buy one of my courses, you don't have to sign up for the podcast. You get here is your login details, here is the podcast feed. And that removal of resistance to going through the course. I know Mariah Cos talked about this on the podcast a couple of months ago. She'd done one of my courses, and because I'd emailed her
Yeah, you had
automatically,
yeah,
and it
you
was
showed
right
her.
there to
Yep.
sign up for the podcast feed, and she's just like, okay. And then before she knows it, she's finished my course, and she's like, hey, this is one of the first courses I've finished that quickly. I think the removal of resistance, and because it's strategically really clever how they automatically get
Just
the
get it.
podcast feed
Mhm.
emailed to them. You don't have to go and sign up for it. So that's all set up, which is amazing. But yeah, the neurodivergent folk, a lot of them in my audience, I think that's another reason they get it and appreciate it,
Mhm.
because the majority of neurodivergent folk are quite audio like focused. Some of them are just like cannot at all and not for them, but a lot of them are with the different like learning styles and stuff.
I think for me, it's like, I want the thing I just bought now. It's a
Yes,
very like
exactly.
that urgency feeling.
Get that. But if you're
100%.
just like, here's a link, click the button, I'm just like, I can do that. I don't have to log in. I don't have to find anything. I don't have to reset my password. Oh my God. Yeah, I think that lack of resistance has also really
Yeah.
helped. And my people have then done the courses. And a lot of people, like I teach people how to have online businesses, create courses, that sort of thing, and they experience it for themselves. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I want this experience for my clients and students as well.
It gets us those wins, and I think that's what an ADHD person is looking for. To be like, "I completed a course in a day." If I'm hyper focused, like you know what I mean? Like,
Because
you get me, right?
all my lessons are generally broken down to about 2 to 5 minutes, and I'm like, "I'll give you that dopamine hit. You watch
Mhm.
that lesson, you click that complete."
You did it. Exactly. Okay. So we have talked a little bit about the courses. We talked a little bit about the background of like how you even came across podcasting or private podcasting, I should say. Let's get into some of the fun feeds and data that when you dug in to get on the show, or
Yes.
to join us on the show, what we found out. So let's start with Summit. Some people might find Lizzie through her very famous Lizzie's Christmas party that she does at the end of every year, which is a huge bundle, a huge undertaking. But she also has another product. So once she learned how to do that well and execute it well, she came up with another thing to do in July, which is great too. So I think that's what we're going to talk about. Let's talk about that one first. Yeah.
Yes. So
Okay.
I hosted my first summit in 2021, so fairly early in my time using Hello Audio. And I had a private podcast feed for the All Access Pass. If you bought the All Access Pass, you could have the private podcast feed. That was quite new at the time, but now it's fairly standard that the All Access Pass has a private podcast feed. When I hosted my second summit last year, Low Ticket Live, which I'm running again this year, I experimented having the private podcast feed also available for the free ticket people. So people who just signed up for the summit for free. And people absolutely loved it. So every day they would get emails with at 8 a.m. UK time, midnight Pacific, with the links to like the 6 presentations of the day, and they'd expire 24 hours later. So it was a 24-hour watch the pre-recorded presentation situation. And I decided to mimic that with a private podcast feed. So the people who bought the All Access Pass, they got their private podcast feed, all the presentations on day one, just like normal. But the people who got the free tickets, I didn't automatically give them the private podcast feed for free, but not for free. Sign them up to it. They had to choose to sign up to it,
Mm.
which is just the way I had it set up. But then every day at 8 a.m., the new podcasts would release. And then the next day, I'd take them away again. So it exactly mimicked the videos. People loved it. I would say like 20 to 25% of the feedback that we got referenced how much they loved having the presentations available on the free ticket as well. Because the point of a summit is like, yeah, you want people to buy the All Access Pass, you do. But I want people to listen to the presentations. I want to get the speakers' ideas out there and inspire people. That was the whole point of the event.
Mhm.
And I need people to listen. And I know with a summit, like it's not much resistant every day to, click to watch the video. Like you don't have to log in or anything usually. But there is even less resistance when it's just like every day they check their podcast. Oh, there are new things here. Oh, I'm going to download these and listen to these. Like it's even less resistance. So I had 1,106 people choose to sign up for the private podcast feed, the free ticket one. And remember that these were nearly all people who didn't buy the All Access
The big
Pass
one.
because they had their separate one. There'll be some overlap, but for the most part, these are separate people. And 937 of those people actually subscribed, which is 85%. So
That's pretty good.
over 1,000 said they want it, 85%. And when I said, 85% actually subscribed and put it in their podcast app. 814 people downloaded at least one episode or presentation. And I think that doesn't include the first one. I'm not 100% sure on how I've done those numbers, but 814 people downloaded at least one. And the majority were more than one. So they were engaging with it, which is getting on for 10% of attendees. And you have to remember that over 12% bought the All Access Pass. So between the All Access Pass and the free private podcast, over 20% of attendees to this summit were getting a private podcast version. But what was super interesting, so that's cool. I was pleased that people loved it. But what was super, super interesting was that every day, so it was a 4-day summit, every day, email open rates decreased, which is what you would expect in a summit. I also know that we had a chatbot and the open rates for the chatbot decreased every single day. But what happened, the average number of presentations downloaded per day increased quite a lot. So on day one for emails, we had a 75.3% open rate. On day 4 for the emails, we were down to 69%. So it dropped over 6%. However, for the podcast, for day 1, this doesn't include the first episode. So I wiped the data for the first episode because that automatically downloaded for a lot of people. On day 1, we had on average 244 downloads per presentation. Okay, that's all right. By day 2, that had increased on average per presentation 645.
Wow.
Day 3, 632, so about the same. And day 4, 747. So we have gone from day 1, 244 average per presentation to 747. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be saying, oh, but as the summit went on, more and more people signed up for the podcast. No, 68% of people signed up for the podcast on or by the first day. So they had the opportunity on the first day to listen, but only average 244 per presentation. But by day 4, 747. How cool is that?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
engagement increased where everywhere else it decreased.
What do you think accounts for that?
I don't know. I think probably that, they might have listened to one and been like, actually, this is really good. And the next subsequent days, they downloaded them.
They made
and they're just
sure.
like,
Yeah.
actually, I'm going to come back. I understand they're going to disappear. So they might have thought, oh, this looks interesting on day 1. Like maybe they didn't actually realize that I'm tech savvy and I will take away the option to download after day 1. Like I do know what I'm doing. And maybe they're just like, actually, no, this is really good. And I do need to engage with this. But I just thought that was really, really cool as a way to, how can that not be increasing engagement when it's going up as the summit goes on?
Yeah, they're finding the value. Yeah, which I think speaks to the folks that you've invited, right? The strategies. It was
Yes.
a good summit too. And it was very niche and like a very topic lots of people are interested in. So all of that. And I think, yeah, like the one thing that I hated about summits, like pre-Hello Audio, was always just this idea that people would be like, oh, you get like 100 presentations and you can watch them in 4 days, or just give me $100 and then you can watch them whenever.
Yeah.
And time after time, I'd give them $100 and still not watch them. You know what I mean? And so it's just, who's benefiting from this? Like I'm trying to learn something. And now I have to sort through, and who has better clickbaity headlines are the ones I'm going to watch. It just never felt listener or like attendee centric. It felt very like all these people are, I don't know, you just, once you get behind it, you're like, oh, they are on this list. And then they all share, like they get people, you know what I mean? It just never felt like for learning. And then like private podcasts come along and you're like, oh, and I'll say this too. And I've said this before in various ways. It's better as a speaker. I want to learn from my colleagues. You know what I mean? And so I think you gave us a pass, and I would only do it if I could listen to it. I would not have clicked on a video. I'm sorry. I just won't. And so the fact that it's still sitting there, if I even a year later, I could watch something I haven't watched. And I think I'm more likely to do that and not have to remember where I bought the ticket or whose course and platform it is and what email address. I think I have 2 email addresses that have your product. So I don't like figure out where shit is. Yeah.
I think what's really interesting about what I did was taking it one step further. Like I think with the accessibility of summits, a lot of people are just like, if you want the private podcast, if you want the transcripts, if you want this stuff, you're going to need to pay. And I kind of wanted to flip that and be like, what happens if I lead with generosity? What happens if I do the absolute most that free ticket attendees can fully engage with this event? Like, I'm putting on this event, yes, to grow my audience, but I'm doing that anyway. They're already signed up to my list. Yes, I want to make all access pass sales, but more than that, I want to get the ideas of these speakers to people. I want to inspire people. I want to engage people. And I think with private podcasts and other ways that make content more accessible, there can often be a lot of gatekeeping and putting it behind a paywall. And I think this kind of shows that there's such leading with that generosity of, no, you can all have it. Like it's the same terms as if you were watching the video, but I'm making it easier for you to engage. And I think people really, really, really enjoyed that. Like a lot of people told me the only reason I engaged with this summit is because you had a podcast for the free ticket as well.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I also agree that like if our goal as creators is to be heard, be listened, be watched, be whatever
Yeah.
read. Especially when you do a summit and you're bringing together people and they're dedicating their time and energy to promoting the product, but also it's like you're honoring them by allowing them to be heard as much as
Yes,
possible. And so
I
by
think so.
removing that, and sure, I can make affiliate sales on some stuff, but like most people are like, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it to be around these other speakers. I'm doing this to meet new people, to learn. Yeah, I think you're definitely onto something by not saying, hey, this private podcast feed is a tripwire or this
Yeah.
private podcast feed, right? It just is the product. It's part of
And
the
the
product. And
change I will make for Low Ticket Live this year, and I don't know why I didn't do it last year, but I will make it this year. Everyone who signs up automatically
mm,
gets enrolled and sent the email. So there's even less resistance. They don't have to sign up for
mhm.
the podcast. When you sign up, you get the welcome email and you get your Hello Audio feed, private podcast feed,
We'll
which I
have to
think
get the
will
updated numbers.
massively increase, the number of people listening through the podcast for sure.
Yeah, 100%. We'll have to get those updated numbers
Yes.
when they come back. So, along those themes is this idea
Yes.
of not gatekeeping. What is another way that you've used private podcasts?
So I have a bunch of, classic evergreen funnels, shall we say. And one of them is for my course about doing Day of Voxer. So it's a webinar evergreen funnel. You sign up for the free training, the evergreen sales webinar, and you have access to that training for 5 days. And if you buy the full course in those 5 days, you get a discount. It's set up with deadline funnel, like fairly classic setup. And that's been working well for years. Like I could probably do more to increase conversions, but it's just not a priority at the moment. And a couple of years ago, I set it up so that when you sign up to watch the free training, you are you're automatically enrolled into the private podcast feed for the 5 days as well. So you can also listen in the private podcast feed for 5 days as well. And then when the timer ends for the video, you also lose access to the episode. So since the 31st of May last year, so we're on the 25th of April. I know these dates are random, but if the last 20 sales came in this time period, then that's how I did it. So since the 31st of May last year, 1,131 people have signed up to watch the free training. And of those, 193 have downloaded the training. So I don't just mean subscribed, I mean they've actually downloaded the one episode with the training in it. So that's 17% of people, which cool. That's cool that they clicked the link and like, yeah, let's listen to this here. So the funnel is converting overall at 0.88%. So that 20 sales I have made of this funnel in the last year. It's very set and forget. I haven't touched it. It's just living there. For the people who download the podcast episode, it is converting at over 2%. So 4 of the 20 sales I have made in the last year have also downloaded the episode via the private podcast, which therefore must mean that if someone downloads the podcast episode version, they are 2.35 times more likely to actually go ahead and buy the course. That's really
That's
cool. Why wouldn't you set up a private podcast version of your evergreen webinar and just send it to people like, here it is if you want it, if that's going to make them over 2 times more likely to actually buy the course because they actually listen to the training and they actually engage with what you're doing.
Are you 2 times more effort put out by doing that? Because no, it's so easy.
I did this years ago, and I just looked at the data. I never looked at this data until a couple of hours ago. And I'm just like, that's really
which
cool.
means everything is getting, no, that is really cool. I think it's a similar question. What accounts for that? And I wonder, do you know the numbers of like people who watch the whole video and buy? Because that's always hard to track sometimes.
I would have that in Vimeo. I don't know what those numbers are. I would have it in video and I would be able to compare. When you sign up for the training, You get the email with the link to watch it, and you get an email to add it to your podcast. And it's kind of
Yeah.
just like, some people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I listen to podcasts. Let me click and add this. And they are so much more likely, because I think, it says like, you've got the 5 days or whatever, they get all the countdown reminder
Mm-hmm.
emails. And I suppose like in their brain, they're just like, oh, I still need to listen to that, but I've got it on my podcast.
Yes.
I'll go listen. And it says it, in the description and stuff, like you have a limited time to get the offer. If you want, like, it's still urgency based. I'm taking this away, plus the offer is going to go. But I think it's just another giving people options and removing resistance for
Yeah.
some people. And they're getting the content where they want the content. They're enjoying the content. And then they're just like, yeah, I'm gonna find that email and actually buy the course.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing too is you have 5 days. And I don't know about you, but I've signed up for things where I was like, shit, now X happened and I can't get to it because this
Yes.
happened in my life. Do you know what I mean? And so there's
Yeah.
life that happens around these windows where you had every intention to watch the video.
Yeah.
But if life happens around those windows and you get that reminder email and like driving your kid to school is when you listen, that's way easier to do than setting aside time to sit down and be like, in your
Definitely.
business life, be like, okay,
Yeah.
now I'm going to sit at the computer and watch this video. And so you're basically opening up those windows of time and opportunity for people who maybe had something come up, which
Yeah.
is what always bothered people about webinars, right? A lot of
Yes,
people sign up to
absolutely.
wait for the replay and then, you don't get enough reminders or whatever.
No.
Again, you don't find the time to watch the
Yeah.
replay. And so you're basically saying by offering that private feed, I'm allowing the person who is more likely to actually listen instead of watch have that opportunity. And then since
Yeah.
they consumed it, of course, they're going to be more likely to buy because that's the whole goal is to
Exactly.
get people to consume the thing because it's written on in a way to make them want the offer if they need it, right?
Yeah. And I do understand that technically, when someone's downloaded it, even though they've been removed access to the feed,
Yes.
they've still got it on their phone. Like, I understand that from a technical perspective, but that is still paired with the fact that you've got 5 days to buy the course with the
You have to
offer.
buy it. Yeah.
So the urgency is still there, even if they're like, oh, well, I've downloaded it. I'll listen to it when I want to listen to it. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
but there's that seed of doubt. But what if I want the offer? I'm getting all
Mhm.
these emails about. So they're still going to make the time to go and listen, even though I understand that technically they can listen to that training whenever they want once they've downloaded it.
But that training doesn't solve their entire problem.
No,
So
exactly.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
why,
yeah.
yeah, I love this. And yeah, I think the urgency piece is really powerful. And I hear it in both this and in the low ticket live with just mirroring the free offer to really honor the people who paid the full
Yeah.
price, right? For the past. But okay, those are some really fascinating numbers. And now want more people. I think it's interesting because I think the whole webinar pairing with the private podcast feed, we've seen people play with it in different ways, but this is like probably the most data that
Oh,
I've
good,
seen
good.
because it's evergreen. I think with those kind of numbers, man, yeah, if you push that feed a little bit more, you get some more ear
Well,
balls.
as I'm doing this, I don't think it even says on the blimmin' landing page that you get a
Probably not.
private podcast feed of it. Some people will come to the landing page and be like, oh, I'm not going to listen to watch
Mm,
that. It's limited
hmm.
time. And they're going to bounce off. And I'm like, I'm not even saying that it's available. And then I'm like, I've got
Yeah.
other webinar funnels. I'm like, why have I not done this? Like, I set this up and then I never looked at it again until a couple of hours ago. And I'm just like, okay, it's so
Luckily,
easy
it's
to
not
set up.
difficult to set up,
No,
as we
it's
know,
not.
right? So that's good. Okay. That's fun. I love this behind the scenes stuff. And I knew you'd have it because, especially if you run a business like the way you run it, experimenting is great and fun and
Yeah.
innovating. I'm the same. But like, if you don't have any data coming out of
Yeah.
those experimentations, you don't know what you can double down on or what.
I'm not a data-driven person at all, but what I would always say is I collect all the data and then things will happen. Someone will ask me something will happen like this podcast interview,
Mhm.
and I will go and look at the data and I will find really cool stuff. Like someone asked me something once about like Facebook ads, because lead gen Facebook ads and stuff. And I went and looked at the data and I'm like, oh, they're working.
You're like,
This
oh
is
shit.
it's working. So I set things up and I track all the data, but I don't look at it until I need to. And then when I go and look at it, I find really cool things that were in there. But I'm not driven to make
Doing
my
it for the
decisions by
data.
data.
Or,
I'm
yeah.
driven
Yeah.
my decisions in my business are made almost like entirely by the shower gods, what they tell me to do.
That's cool. Okay. So, well, are you sitting on a feed that you haven't launched or an idea of a way of using a feed? Clearly, you have some work to do on your webinar funnels, but.
I've always got ideas. One thing I think would be really fun to do. So I've tried some other different types of private podcast feeds. Like I had a podcast feed for my client student only group. So sometimes I'll put like video content in there. And it was short lived. I never talked about it again. One thing I would love to try at some point. So I use Voxer a lot in my business, and kind of like, you can just download the messages and stick them into Hello Audio, which I do sometimes in other things. But I think it would be, because I sell so many different things, and because there's so many different things going on in my business, I don't do these big proper launches. It's more like 4 days, buy it. Oh, move on to the next thing. I got bored. That's kind of how I roll. I think it would be really fun, and I might do this sometime, to do what is almost like unashamedly like a sales podcast. What is Lizzie selling at the moment? And what does Lizzie
Just
want
like
to tell
an
you
announcement
about what
system.
she's selling? I'm all right at writing emails. I'm good at writing emails. But if I had a podcast, my people would sign up for it. And then if I'm just like, you just suddenly get this podcast episode where I'm just like chatting about what I'm selling this week and what I'm adding to it and what I'm doing. Like I've got a bunch of $9 offers, and I just added a new lesson to one of these $9 offers. And normally I'll go and post in my like clients journey group. Yeah, I haven't done it yet, but I will be like, I've just added this lesson. If you want to get the course, here's the link. But I could also pop, not the lesson, but like pop me talking about it for 90 seconds onto a podcast feed. And then that would go out to all the people who vaguely care what I'm doing. And if they haven't yet got it, they can be like, oh, I'll go buy that. Or if they have got it, they can go check out the new lesson. So I want to do like a sales
An
podcast
announcement
feed, like
feed?
what's
Like, yeah.
and I could have, I could have guests on to like case studies and interviews with clients and
Yes.
students about their results. It's just what I'm selling, what I'm doing, because a lot of people have podcasts that are to do with just like their thoughts on stuff, but not that, just like the thoughts on what I'm selling and offering. And I think I could make it interesting enough to just like ramble that people might listen and buy. I don't know if that's just really bold to say, but I think that could be fun.
I could see that for you. I don't know that everyone would need that
No,
type of
I
feed,
know.
right? And
I agree.
But
I
because
agree.
you have so many moving parts, like it kind of actually makes sense. If you look at the podcast player as an email inbox, like as an inbox.
Exactly.
And if you
That's what I
really
mean.
like own that, then this is a feed, a distribution channel that is not tied to an algorithm, that will show up in their app. And so somebody who's like, I'm always curious her latest offer because I can't keep up with the group. I miss the emails or whatever. It's another way that somebody could get that information. I think we always knew that that was a possibility as well. Like people have turned their newsletters into feeds, but this is a little different. You do have a lot of things. You are updating stuff
Because
constantly. You
at
are
the
hard to
moment-
keep track of.
Exactly.
So this is a way to do that.
And I witter away in my Facebook group. Like I just witter away in there. I post teasing of things I might do that then someone 2 months later will be asking me, what was this? Did it ever come? And I'm just like, I have no idea what I thought that was going to be. So probably not. Who knows?
No idea.
It happens all the time. It's so embarrassing. But yeah, like I witter away in Party Pad, and emails are more structured. There needs to be a little bit more thought and structure. I witter away in Party Pad, which is my client student only group. It's called Team Images Party Pad, just to make sense there. Why can I witter away on a feed? Why wouldn't that work as well? So that's an idea I've had for a while. Who knows if I'll do it.
It could totally work. That would be a very unique way. I did think, I was like, you do your Lizzie weeks too. I could see you having a show that is not a show, but like a feed that's more behind the scenes of like your decision making. Andrea Crowder just recently launched one. We had her on the show before, she did, and she's like obsessed with it now. And it's literally, she just records it whenever she has a feeling or a thought or something she's worked through. She's obviously a very like coachy. And so hers is more like, oh, like this is how my launch is going, or I wasn't motivated to work today and here's what I did to change that. But her people love it. They pay like $60 a month or something for that level of access. Cool. And so
much
I can see that for
more
you. Different way.
text-based. Like,
Yeah.
I would rather type. So which is why I think so I do this thing called Lizzie's Week where I document in a Google Doc where everyone can follow along in real time everything I do for a whole week, from the minute I wake up to the minute I go to bed. And people can leave comments and I can chat back and forth, and it's super fun thing I do. I don't know that for me and how my brain works, that would
Mm,
translate to a podcast feed, because for me, it needs to be something that I'm not currently doing, but I like
mm,
could be doing, rather
mhm.
than trying to copy what I'm doing somewhere else and take it
Sure.
to audio. But I don't know, like everyone's different. Some people can just riff. I can't riff on
Mm,
something, which is
mm.
why, I don't have a podcast. Like I have no idea how I would start talking about things. But if you are in conversation with me, or if I'm talking about something do you know what I mean? I'm very responsive. Like I could interview people, I assume, but like I can respond to people, but I
Not you
can't.
initiating
If
the
you
idea
ask
or the
me,
topic. Yeah.
like, talk about, and you could list like any of my main courses, I'll be like, I have no idea. They're good. Do it. I don't,
Yeah.
like, I've no idea how to say about that. But if I was talking about specific things I've added to the courses, or ideas I've had, or particular student results or testimonials that I thought were really exciting, or ideas like that sort of thing, I think that could potentially work.
Yeah, I see. It's like more, I wonder if it's because it's like more focus of what the outcome is like.
Yes.
I'm talking about my products
Yeah.
and what is being sold right now, what updates I've
That's
made.
the point.
Here are people
Buy
talking
it.
about my products. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I love it. I think that's cool. I think people would totally subscribe to it because the way people follow what you're launching in your group, I think is pretty top notch. There's a lot of people that are like, what are you working on right now? Like
Yes.
in your group,
Yes.
always. Like, when's the next get it done week? When's the next
I know. I
launch of
know.
whatever? And so here's a way that they could subscribe and know that they won't miss it. There's something
Yes.
about the Facebook group that feels like
I
I
agree.
might miss it.
And
Yeah,
emails too. Like, we're all
same.
so overwhelmed, and I actively do things that overwhelm people's emails more, with like Lizzie's Christmas party, which is this mega hybrid bundle. Like, people end up joining hundreds of lists off the back of it. So
Yeah,
I have made it
mm,
harder for me to cut through the
you're the
noise,
problem.
because I'm the
Yeah.
problem, but I've also given a platform and
Mm-hmm.
supported and promoted my
100%.
clients and students, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole strategy that's worked really well for me. But if I can find other ways, so like I had a chatbot for Low Ticket Live, and that went really well, to find another way to reach my people. And I think there is some exciting potential with a private podcast feed as another way to reach my people in a place that is less noisy than inboxes and Facebook, to be honest.
Okay, so we often ask, what advice would you give for people who are like looking to launch their first private feed? And I think for the question for you is more like, what would you tell somebody who's overwhelmed with maybe all the different ways that they could use a private podcast? What advice would you give them about getting one going?
Just start with, like, if you've got a course or a training, or like a video course, training, anything, like, just set up one, start there. It literally takes you like 10 minutes. Like, people spend so long like stressing about that they need to do it, and then they're always just like, oh my gosh, it took no time at all. And I'm like, I know, I did tell you, it's very, very quick. And then it's almost, once you've worked out what all the settings do, and there's really not that many, there's like 10 main settings you need to click on, then the first time you do something, the tech, the systems, the process takes a lot of the energy. So start with something you've already got. Like, my advice would be, create an private podcast of something you have already recorded. Don't sit down to create a private podcast and create the
Mm,
audio that goes into it,
I think
so
that's
that you
it.
can
My
really work on the tech and the process of it. And then the next time, you've got all the options because you know exactly how it works now.
Yes, good. So it's like getting you in. You used to teach like tech and systems and stuff.
Yes,
So
I
yeah,
did.
getting into how the product works
Yeah.
and take the easy route and then get complicated or now start making your own
Yes.
versions of things. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that advice. Very cool. All right. The final question we ask all our guests is like, if there was like a podcast, a private podcast of your life's rambling, so maybe you're passing it
Yeah.
on to your kids, who knows, what would you title it?
Lizzie and the Shower Gods.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I
And it's trademarked
trademarked
now.
the
I
shower
saw
gods. I
that.
trademarked the shower gods. I worship the shower gods. The
As you
shower gods
should.
tell me what to do.
There you go, guys. That is it. Lizzie is starting a church, a religion, and you heard it here first. Cool. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, sharing the behind the scenes, because that's really huge. And yes, we of course love you at Hello Audio. We love all the people you send us, and we are forever grateful for how you use
Amazing.
our product and how you talk about us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been really fun to dig into things like this.
I don't know if you're listening and you don't know who Lizzie is, but you will have every link below and you can dive into her world and see all the things that she mentioned today. But thank you again. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
And there you have it, audio heads. Another episode of Launch Your Private Podcast is in the books. I hope you're leaving today feeling even more ready to amplify your voice and connect with your audience in meaningful ways. The adventure continues in our next episode with even more insights, strategies, and inspiration to help you along your own private podcasting journey. Of course, make sure to check out helloaudio.fm to start your own private podcast. And remember, you've got amazing content that needs to be heard, so let's turn the volume up. Until next time.